The stars had always watched over the Valentari Imperium. For 12,000 years, the Empire had spread across the galaxy like a great wave. It swallowed worlds. It crushed resistance. It turned free species into slaves, and called this process civilization. Grand Admiral Ketharin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was tall for his kind, with gray skin that showed his age and wisdom. His 4 eyes looked at the holographic display before him. The blue dot in the center of the map was his next target. The humans called it Earth. "How long until we arrive?" he asked. His voice was calm. He had done this 89 times before. 89 species had fallen to his fleets. Some had begged, some had fought. All had lost. 3 standard rotations. "Grand Admiral," replied his navigation officer. "The 7th Subjugation Fleet is proceeding at optimal speed." Kev Varane nodded slowly. Behind his flagship, 200 warships followed in perfect formation, battle cruisers with enough firepower to crack planets, destroyers fast enough to chase down any vessel, troop carriers filled with soldiers, ready to establish order on another conquered world. This was the way of the Imperium. Find primitive species, demand their surrender, crush any who refused. The universe had rules, and the Villainthari enforced them. "Show me what we know about these humans," Ketharin commanded. The holographic display changed. Images appeared before him. Strange creatures with only 2 eyes and soft skin. They walked on 2 legs and had no natural weapons, no claws, no armor, no venom. The Grand Admiral made a sound of amusement. "They are fragile," observed his second-in-command, Fleet Commander Yathara. She was younger than him, eager to prove herself. "Our soldiers will have no difficulty." "Indeed," Keth Varan agreed. "What of their technology?" The display showed primitive rockets, chemical propulsion, nuclear fish reactors, radio communications that leaked into space, like a child crying in the dark. The humans had only just begun to leave their own world. They had small colonies on their moon, and on a nearby red planet. Nothing more. "They are at least 1,000 years behind us," Yathara said. "Perhaps more. They have no faster-than-light capability, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. They are using combustion engines and simple electronics." Keith Varane studied the images carefully. He saw cities filled with millions of humans. He saw vehicles moving on roads. He saw aircraft in their skies. Primitive. All of it was primitive. But something caught his attention. He leaned forward. "What are those?" he asked, pointing at certain structures. The display zoomed in. Large buildings surrounded by fences, soldiers in uniform, vehicles with weapons mounted on them, military installations. "Grand Admiral." "They appear to have them on every continent." "How many?" Ether checked her data. "Thousands, Grand Admiral. They also have large naval vessels in their oceans and aircraft, capable of carrying weapons." Keith Varan considered this. Most primitive species had small warrior classes, protectors who defended their leaders. But the humans seemed different. They had military forces everywhere. They fight among themselves. He realized they are divided into different nations, different tribes. "Correct, Grand Admiral. Our analysis shows over 200 separate political entities. Many of them appear to be hostile to each other." This brought a smile to Keth Varane's face. A divided enemy was a weak enemy. When the Imperium arrived, these humans would be too busy fighting each other to resist. Some might even welcome the Velthari as liberators. "This will be simple," he declared. "We will appear in their sky. We will demonstrate our power. They will surrender. Those who resist will be destroyed. Those who submit will serve as it has always been." Yetra agreed. The Grand Admiral turned away from the display. He had conquered species far more advanced than these humans. Species with energy weapons and space stations. Species with armies and fleets. All had fallen. What chance did these soft, primitive creatures have? None. They had no chance at all. On Earth, life continued as it always had. People went to work. Children went to school. The governments argued about borders and trade, and the endless small conflicts that filled human history. But deep beneath mountains, and inside hardened bunkers, other people worked in secret. They watched the skies. They listened to the silence between stars. They waited for something that many hoped would never come. Dr. Sarah Chen was one of these watchers. She worked at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Colorado. Her job was simple, but important. She looked for anything unusual in space. Asteroids that might hit Earth, strange signals from distant stars, anything that might matter. For 15 years, she had found nothing. The universe seemed empty and quiet. Some of her colleagues had started to believe they were alone, that humanity was the only intelligent life in existence. Sarah had never believed this. The universe was too big, too old, too full of possibilities. Something was out there. She was certain of it. On a cold Tuesday morning, she found proof. The computers detected it first. A gravitational disturbance at the edge of the solar system. Something large had just appeared where nothing had been before. Not one object, many objects. Sarah stared at her screen. Her coffee cup fell from her hand and shattered on the floor. She did not notice. "Oh my God," she whispered. The objects were moving. They were heading toward Earth, and they were moving far faster than any human technology could explain. Within 1 hour, every major government on Earth knew the truth. The message spread through secure channels. Presidents and prime ministers received urgent calls. Generals gathered in war rooms. Scientists confirmed what Sarah had discovered. Aliens. Real aliens. And they were coming. The first reaction was fear. Pure, cold fear. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone. Now they knew they were not. And the visitors were not sending friendly greetings. They were sending a fleet. 200 ships, each one larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. Each one moving with technology that seemed like magic. They would arrive at Earth in 3 days. The United Nations Emergency Council met within hours. Representatives from every major nation gathered in a secure facility beneath the Swiss Alps. They argued, they shouted, they demanded answers that no one had. But they also did something that surprised many observers. They stopped arguing about their differences. Old enemies sat together. Countries that had threatened each other for decades suddenly cooperated. The threat from the stars was bigger than any conflict on Earth. Secretary General Yuki Tanaka took control of the meeting. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had served as a diplomat for 40 years. She had negotiated peace treaties and ended wars, but she had never faced anything like this. "We have 3 days," she said. Her voice was steady. "In 3 days, we will meet an alien species. We do not know their intentions. We must prepare for all possibilities." "Prepare how?" demanded the American representative. "We have nothing that can match their technology. We can barely reach our own moon. They just crossed interstellar space." "We have weapons," said the Russian representative. "Many weapons." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant. Humanity had spent decades building weapons of terrible power. Nuclear bombs, thermonuclear warheads, enough destructive force to destroy civilization itself. These weapons had been built to fight each other. But now, perhaps they could serve a different purpose. "We cannot assume they are hostile," argued the Chinese representative. "Perhaps they come in peace. Perhaps they wish to share their knowledge. And perhaps they want our planet," replied the British representative. "We must be ready for both possibilities." Yuki Tanaka listened to the debate. She thought about humanity's history. War after war, conflict after conflict. Humans had always fought. They had fought over land, over resources, over ideas. They had developed terrible weapons because they feared each other. But now, facing a threat from beyond the stars, that history might save them, "We will prepare for the worst," she announced. "Every nation will contribute to our defense. All military forces will coordinate. All weapons will be made ready. We will hope for peace, but prepare for war." The representatives nodded. Old rivalries faded in the face of extinction. For the first time in human history, the entire species united against a common enemy, and the preparations began. In missile silos across the world, nuclear weapons were brought to readiness. Submarines carrying enough warheads to destroy continents received new orders. Fighter jets were loaded with the most advanced weapons humanity possessed. But humanity had other weapons too. Weapons that had been developed in secret. Weapons that the public knew nothing about. In orbit above Earth, satellites that were officially for communication and observation received new programming. They were more than they appeared. Much more. For decades, major powers had hidden military technology in space. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. Laser systems designed to destroy enemy satellites. Kinetic impactors that could strike any target on Earth with the force of a nuclear bomb. These weapons had been built for wars that never came. Now they would face a different enemy. General Marcus Stone stood in the Pentagon's war room. He was the commander of America's space forces. He had spent his career preparing for threats that most people thought were fantasy. Asteroid impacts, solar flares, and yes, alien invasion. Status report, he commanded. All orbital assets are online. General railgun platforms Alpha through Epsilon are charged and ready. Laser batteries are operational. Kinetic impactor reserves are positioned for optimal strike coverage. Stone nodded. What about our ground-based systems? All ICBM forces are on high alert. The Navy has positioned nuclear submarines in optimal launch positions. Air forces worldwide are ready to scramble. For the first time, all of humanity's weapons would work together. American missiles, Russian submarines, Chinese satellites, European jets. Every nation contributed what it had. But would it be enough? Stone looked at the images of the alien fleet. 200 ships, technology beyond human understanding, faster than light travel. What other capabilities did they have? Shields, death rays, weapons humanity could not even imagine. He did not know. No one knew. They were facing the unknown. We hit them with everything, Stone said. If they're hostile, we don't give them a chance to react. We launch everything at once. We use every weapon we have. If we're going to fight, we fight to win. And if they come in peace, General Stone was silent for a moment. Then we apologize. But I'd rather apologize for overreacting than watch humanity die because we hesitated. In Russia, similar preparations were underway. In China, in India, in Europe, humanity's war machine, built over centuries of conflict, now turned to face the stars. And in the vacuum of space, the Valanthari fleet continued its approach. Grand Admiral Keth Varain reviewed his plans. He would arrive at Earth. He would broadcast the standard subjugation decree. He would give the humans one rotation to surrender. Then, if they refused, he would destroy a few of their cities to teach them the cost of resistance. It had always worked before. It would work again. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The last 3 days passed quickly. Scientists studied the approaching fleet. Military forces reached maximum readiness. Ordinary people watched the news with fear in their hearts. Some prayed, some panicked, some denied that it was happening at all. But most simply waited. They trusted their leaders. They trusted their soldiers. They trusted that humanity would survive. As it had survived every other threat in history, Dr. Sarah Chen remained at her station. She watched the alien fleet grow closer. She recorded everything she could. Speed, formation, energy signatures, every detail might matter. And she noticed something interesting. Their formation hasn't changed, she reported. Since they entered our solar system, they've maintained the exact same positions. No evasive maneuvers, no defensive formations. They're approaching in a straight line. What does that mean? Asked her supervisor. Sarah considered the question. It means they're confident. They don't expect resistance. They're not preparing for a fight. This information reached the military commanders. It confirmed what they had suspected. The aliens believed this would be easy. They believed humanity would surrender without a fight. They were wrong. On the morning of the 3rd day, the alien fleet reached Earth orbit. 200 ships hung in the sky like metal gods. They were massive, beautiful, terrifying. And from the largest ship, a transmission began. Grand Admiral Ketharin's face appeared on every screen on Earth. His gray skin, his 4 eyes, his calm, confident expression. He spoke, and translation systems converted his words into every human language. People of Earth, I am Grand Admiral Keth Varen of the Valanthari Imperium. Your world now belongs to the Imperium. You will surrender all military forces. You will surrender all political authority. You will serve the Imperium as subjects and workers. This is not a request. This is a command. The message continued. The Grand Admiral explained the terms of surrender. Humans would work in mines and factories. They would serve Valanthari masters. Their freedom was over. You have one rotation to comply, Kev Varane concluded. Resistance will be met with destruction. Surrender and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will be annihilated. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Silence fell over the earth. In the Swiss Alps bunker, the emergency council gathered one final time. They had heard the alien's message. They knew what he demanded. Total surrender. Slavery for the human race. Secretary General Yuki Tanaka looked at the representatives. She saw fear in some eyes, anger in others, but she also saw determination. These were the leaders of humanity. They would not give up without a fight. We have heard their terms, she said. What is our response? The debate was short. Every nation agreed. Surrender was not an option. Slavery was not acceptable. Humanity would fight. Yuki Tanaka nodded. She walked to the communication console. She opened a channel to the alien fleet. The Grand Admiral's face appeared on her screen. Grand Admiral Keth Voran, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. This is Secretary General Yuki Tanaka of the United Nations. I speak for all of humanity. Kev Varane smiled. He expected surrender. He expected begging. He expected the usual primitive response to overwhelming force. You have decided to be reasonable, he said. Good. Prepare your people for transition to Imperium control. No. Tanaka's voice was ice. We have decided to give you a choice. You have entered sovereign human space without permission. You have made threats against our people. You have demanded our slavery. Kevaran's smile faded. This was not the expected response. You have 20 minutes to withdraw from our solar system, Tanaka continued. 20 minutes to turn your ships around and leave. If you remain, you will be destroyed. There will be no second warning. The Grand Admiral stared at her in disbelief. Then he laughed. You threaten us, you primitives. With your chemical rockets and your nuclear toys. You cannot even leave your own planet. How can you possibly threaten the Valentari Imperium? Yuki Tanaka's expression did not change. 20 minutes, Grand Admiral. Starting now. She ended the transmission on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Kev Voran was still laughing. His officers looked confused. No species had ever responded to subjugation with threats. It was absurd, insane. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. Yetta observed. They are primitive. Kevaran replied. They do not understand what they face. We will teach them. He gave the order. The fleet began to move into bombardment position. They would strike a coastal city first. A demonstration of power. Then the humans would understand. Then they would beg for mercy. But the Grand Admiral did not notice the thousands of small objects rising from the Earth's surface below. Humanity's 20-minute countdown had begun, and when it reached 0, the Valentari Imperium would learn a terrible truth. They had not come to conquer a primitive species. They had awakened a sleeping predator, and the predator was very, very angry. Grand Admiral Kevaran watched the blue planet below with satisfaction. Earth was beautiful. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds swirling in complex patterns. It would make a fine addition to the Imperium. The humans had given him an ultimatum. 20 minutes to leave or face destruction. The idea was so absurd that his officers were still laughing about it. A species that had only recently discovered radio waves threatening the greatest military force in the galaxy. Which city shall we demonstrate upon, Grand Admiral? Asked Fleet Commander Yathera. She was already selecting targets on her tactical display. Kev Varane studied the options. He wanted a city large enough to make an impression, but not so large that it would damage too many potential workers. The humans would need to serve in factories and mines. Too much destruction would reduce their usefulness. There, he said, pointing to a coastal city in the western region of a large continent. It appears to have several million inhabitants. Destroy the central district. Leave the rest intact. Yes, Grand Admiral. The order went out to the weapons officers. Plasma cannons began charging. The Velthari had perfected these weapons over thousands of years. One shot could vaporize a square kilometer of surface. 10 shots would turn the city center into glass. The humans had given him 20 minutes. 15 had already passed. Kev Voran decided not to wait. Why give them false hope? Fire when ready, he commanded. But before the weapons could fire, something unexpected happened. Grand Admiral shouted a sensor officer. We're detecting energy signatures from the planet's surface. Thousands of them. Objects are rising from multiple locations. Kevoran frowned. What kind of objects? Unknown. They're small, moving fast, accelerating toward our fleet. The Grand Admiral walked to the sensor display. He saw dots rising from every continent, from oceans, from islands, from mountain ranges. Thousands upon thousands of dots, all converging on his fleet. Missiles, Yathara said. Chemical propulsion, primitive weapons. How primitive? Kevoran asked. Our point defense systems will destroy them easily. They're too slow to pose any threat. But even as she spoke, more objects appeared. These were different. They came from orbit itself, from satellites that had seemed harmless just moments before. And these objects were not slow. The first railgun round struck the destroyer, inevitable victory before anyone could react. It was a simple weapon by Valentari standards. A metal projectile accelerated to a fraction of light speed by electromagnetic rails. No explosive, no warhead, just mass and velocity. The projectile punched through the destroyer's hull like a needle through paper. It entered through the bow and exited through the engine section, leaving a tunnel of destruction. The ship's reactor lost containment instantly. The inevitable victory exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. Kevoran stared in disbelief. He had lost ships before, in battles against other Velthari houses, in conflicts with advanced species. But never like this. Never so quickly. Never so unexpectedly. What was that? He demanded. Kinetic projectile. Grand Admiral, it came from an orbital platform. We didn't detect it because we weren't looking. We classified those satellites as civilian infrastructure. They had been wrong, very wrong. And then the missiles arrived. The Velthari point defense systems were designed to destroy projectiles. Slow-moving rocks and primitive rockets posed no challenge. The automated systems targeted the incoming missiles and began firing. But there were too many missiles. Far too many. The humans had spent decades building nuclear weapons. Intercontinental ballistic missiles designed to strike targets anywhere on Earth. Each missile carried multiple warheads. Each warhead could destroy a city. Now all of those weapons had new targets. The point defense batteries destroyed hundreds of missiles. Thousands. But more kept coming. They came from underground silos, from submarines hidden in the oceans, from trucks that had been disguised as civilian vehicles, from aircraft that had scrambled the moment the alien fleet arrived. The first nuclear detonation occurred 17 kilometers from the battlecruiser Dominance of Stars. The warhead was small by human standards, only 50 kilotons. But in space, there is no atmosphere to absorb energy. The radiation and electromagnetic pulse struck the ship at the speed of light. Every sensor on the Dominance of Stars went blind. Every computer crashed. Every communication system failed. The ship drifted helplessly, its crew unable to see or hear or respond. And then 17 more nuclear detonations occurred around it. When the radiation cleared, the Dominance of Stars was a twisted wreck of melted metal. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms were screaming. Officers shouted reports that made no sense. Ships were dying. The fleet was under attack. But from where? From a primitive species that couldn't even travel faster than light. Casualties. Keith Verrain roared. What are our casualties? 17 capital ships destroyed. Grand Admiral, 32 more damaged and non-responsive. We're losing contact with vessels across the formation. 17 capital ships in less than 5 minutes. This was impossible. This could not be happening. Return fire, he ordered. Destroy their weapons. The surviving ships opened fire. Plasma bolts rained down toward Earth's surface. But the humans had prepared for this too. The coastal city that Kevoran had targeted never received the bombardment. The plasma bolts struck shields that had not existed 5 minutes earlier. Energy barriers that the humans had kept hidden. Experimental technology that they had never used because they had no enemy worthy of it. Until now, the shields held barely. Cracks appeared in the energy matrix. Generators overheated, but the city survived. And while the Valentari focused on the planet below, more attacks came from above. Laser satellites activated. These were weapons that the humans had built in secret, hiding them among communication and observation platforms. Each laser was powered by nuclear reactors. Each could focus enough energy to cut through steel like butter. The lasers targeted the Valentari destroyers. These smaller ships had weaker armor. They relied on speed and numbers for protection. But speed meant nothing against light-speeded weapons. Numbers meant nothing when each shot was precisely targeted. Destroyers began exploding. 1512. The laser operators on Earth could see their targets through telescopes and satellites. They could adjust their aim in real time. They could strike the same spot again and again until armor failed and reactors breached. Grand Admiral Keith Voran watched his fleet die around him. He had commanded the 7th Subjugation Fleet for 200 years. He had never lost a battle. He had never even come close to losing. Now he was losing badly. Analysis, he demanded. How is this happening? His tactical officer worked frantically. Their weapons are more advanced than we expected. Grand Admiral, the kinetic projectiles are magnetically accelerated. The nuclear weapons are using enhanced radiation designs, and they have orbital assets we never detected. How did we miss this? We only scanned for threats that matched our own technology. We looked for energy shields and plasma weapons, and faster-than-light engines. We didn't look for primitive weapons scaled up to military applications. It was a fatal error. The Valentari had been conquering species for thousands of years. They had developed protocols, standard procedures. They scanned for threats, but only threats they recognized. The humans had built different weapons. Weapons designed to fight each other. Nuclear bombs, railguns, lasers, kinetic impactors. These were not the weapons of an advanced civilization. They were the weapons of a species that had spent its entire history at war, and they were devastatingly effective. "We need to withdraw," Yura said. Her voice was shaking. "Grand Admiral, we need to leave now." Kev Voron hesitated. Retreat was shameful. The Imperium did not retreat from primitives, but the alternative was annihilation. Before he could give the order, another wave of attacks struck. These came from the planet's surface. Hypersonic missiles that had been hidden in mountains and deserts and forests. They flew faster than any projectile the Velthari had ever encountered from a primitive species. Their guidance systems adapted in real time, evading point defense fire with complex maneuvers, and they carried nuclear warheads. The missiles targeted the fleet carrier vessels. These huge ships held the Valentari landing forces, thousands of soldiers waiting to occupy Earth, tanks and aircraft, and supplies for a planetary conquest. The carriers were not designed for combat. They had armor, but not enough. They had point defense, but not enough. They relied on the battle fleet to protect them. That protection had failed. The first carrier, the vessel of eternal service, took 3 direct hits. The nuclear detonations occurred inside the ship where missiles had punched through weakened armor. The explosions turned 10,000 soldiers into vapor. The second carrier tried to maneuver. It was too slow, too large. 5 missiles found it. The ship broke apart, spilling debris and bodies into space. The third carrier survived the missiles, but a kinetic projectile from an orbital railgun struck its engine section. The ship lost power and began falling toward Earth. Pulled by gravity, it could no longer resist. Keverin watched 3 carriers die in 30 seconds. More than 30,000 soldiers. Gone. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships emergency withdrawal. Jump to faster than light as soon as possible." The order went out. Surviving ships began spinning up their FTL drives. But the drives needed time. Time to charge. Time to calculate safe jump coordinates. Time that the humans were not going to give. On Earth, General Marcus Stone watched the battle through satellite feeds. He saw the alien fleet trying to flee. He saw their ships powering up strange engines that glowed with exotic energy. "They're running," he said. "Don't let them." The order went out. Every remaining weapon in humanity's arsenal focused on the retreating fleet. Missiles launched from every continent. Railguns fired continuously. Lasers burned through alien hulls. And then the cyber warfare units joined the fight. For decades, human nations had developed digital weapons, viruses, Trojans, worms, logic bombs. These weapons were designed to attack computer systems, to steal data, to disrupt communications, to turn enemy technology against itself. The Velthari had never encountered anything like it. Their ships used wireless communications. Their computers worked together for efficiency. This was standard practice in the Imperium. No species had ever tried to attack through these networks. The humans attacked immediately. It started small. Strange signals broadcast from Earth's surface. Unusual data packets that seemed harmless. The voluntary computers processed them automatically, and then the viruses activated on the destroyer Wrath of the Imperium. The navigation computer suddenly changed course. The ship turned directly into the firing line of 3 other vessels. Before anyone could react, friendly fire destroyed it. On the cruiser Light of Civilization, the weapon systems locked onto Allied ships. The automated cannons opened fire. 2 destroyers died before the crew could disable the weapons manually on dozens of ships. Communication systems failed. Engines shut down. Life support activated emergency protocols that vented atmosphere into space. Crews suffocated. Reactors overloaded. Ships died from the inside. Grand Admiral Keith Voran watched his fleet tear itself apart. Some ships were destroyed by human weapons. Others were destroyed by each other. Others simply stopped functioning and drifted helplessly. "This is impossible," he whispered. "This cannot be happening." But it was happening, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Eternal Dominion shook violently. An alarm screamed. "Hull breach!" shouted an officer. "Decks 12 through 15. We've been hit by kinetic projectiles. Seal those sections." "We're trying, Grand Admiral. The automated systems aren't responding. Something is wrong with our computers." The virus had reached the flagship. Keith Voran could see it spreading through his ship systems. Displays flickered. Lights failed. Doors opened and closed randomly. And outside, the human attacks continued without mercy. In the Swiss Alps bunker, Secretary General Yuki Tanaka watched the battle unfold. She felt no satisfaction, no joy. She saw ships dying, living creatures burning in nuclear fire. This was not a victory to celebrate. It was a slaughter, but it was necessary. The aliens had come to enslave humanity. They had threatened extinction. They had given humans a choice between submission and death. Humanity had chosen a third option: fight back, fight hard, fight to win. "Status report," she requested. "The enemy fleet is in full retreat," reported General Stone via video link. "We've destroyed approximately 60% of their ships. The survivors are attempting to jump to faster than light, but we're disrupting their systems with cyber attacks. Can they escape? Some will. We can't stop them all, but we've captured their communications. We know where they came from. We know who sent them." Tanaka nodded slowly. "And the enemy commander, his flagship is damaged, but still functional. It's the largest surviving vessel. Do you want us to destroy it?" Tanaka thought carefully. Destroying the flagship would be satisfying. It would eliminate the commander who had threatened humanity. But living enemies could talk. Living enemies could provide information. Living enemies could be useful. "Disable it if possible," she said. "I want prisoners." The order went out. The attacks on the Eternal Dominion shifted. Instead of destroying the ship, human forces tried to it. Railgun rounds targeted engine sections. Lasers burned through weapon emplacements. Missiles struck sensor arrays. On the bridge, Grand Admiral Keth Verrain watched his ship die around him. The Eternal Dominion was the greatest vessel in the 7th Fleet. It had been his home for 2 centuries. Now it was a burning wreck. "FTL drive status?" he asked desperately. "Destroyed. Grand Admiral." A railgun round penetrated the drive chamber. "We cannot jump. Sublight engines functional but damaged. We can move, but slowly. Communications jammed. Something is blocking all frequencies." Keith Voran slumped in his command chair. He was trapped. His fleet was destroyed. His ship was crippled. And the humans were coming. The first human shuttle approached the Eternal Dominion 20 minutes later. It was small compared to Velthari assault craft, blocky and utilitarian, but it moved with purpose. Docking with an airlock that the crew could no longer seal, Keith Voran activated the internal cameras. He watched humans emerge from the shuttle. They wore armored suits. They carried weapons and they moved through his ship with practiced efficiency. These were not frightened primitives. These were soldiers. He had studied human history during the journey to Earth. He had learned about their wars: World War I, World War II, the Cold War. Countless smaller conflicts. Humans had been fighting and killing each other for their entire existence. He had dismissed this as evidence of their primitive nature. Advanced species did not engage in constant warfare. They found peaceful solutions to their problems. Now he understood the truth. Humans were not primitive. They were predators. They had evolved in a harsh environment where violence was rewarded. They had developed weapons because they needed weapons. They had built armies because they needed armies. And when faced with an external threat, they united those armies against a common enemy, him. The human soldiers reached the bridge in less than an hour. They burned through the doors with cutting tools. They threw devices that exploded with blinding light and deafening sound. They rushed in while the Valari crew was still disoriented. Kev Varan did not resist. What would be the point? His personal guards were dead, his weapons were offline, his fleet was destroyed. He was beaten. A human soldier approached him. The soldier removed her helmet. She was small by Valentari standards. Her skin was brown. Her eyes were dark. Her face showed no emotion. "Grand Admiral Keth Varane," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "By the authority of the United Nations of Earth, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. You will be taken into custody and held for trial." Kevarun stared at her. This tiny creature, this soft, fragile being. She had just defeated the greatest military force he had ever commanded. "How?" he asked. "How did you do this? You are primitives. You have no advanced technology. How did you defeat us?" The human soldier smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You came to enslave us," she said. "Instead, you've introduced yourselves." She gestured to her team. They secured the bridge. They took the surviving Valentari officers into custody. They downloaded data from every computer they could access. And as they worked, more human shuttles arrived. More soldiers, engineers, scientists. They swarmed over the Eternal Dominion like insects, taking everything of value. Grand Admiral Ketharin was the first Valentari to be captured by humans. He would not be the last. On Earth, the sun rose on a world that had changed forever. The alien invasion had lasted less than 2 hours. 200 enemy ships had entered the solar system. Only 31 remained, and every one of those survivors had surrendered unconditionally. Humanity had faced its first contact with an alien species. That species had come to enslave them, and humanity had responded with overwhelming force. The universe would remember this day, the day the humans taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Do not threaten Earth. Do not attack humanity. Do not underestimate the species that spent 10,000 years learning how to kill, because if you do, they will annihilate you before you can react, and they will not stop until you are completely destroyed. The battle above Earth would be studied for centuries. Military armies across the galaxy would analyze every moment. Historians would write books about it. Philosophers would debate its meaning. But for the humans who fought it, the battle was simple. Kill or be killed. Win or die. Lieutenant Commander James Okonkwo sat in the cockpit of his orbital strike platform. The platform was officially called Sentinel Station 12. Unofficially, the crews called it the Hammer. It was one of dozens of secret military installations that humanity had hidden in orbit. The Hammer carried 8 railgun batteries. Each battery could accelerate a 10-kilogram tungsten projectile to 5% of light speed. The projectiles carried no explosives. They didn't need any. At those speeds, the kinetic energy alone was equivalent to a small nuclear bomb. James had trained for this moment his entire career. He had run thousands of simulations. He had practiced targeting enemy satellites and theoretical asteroid threats. He had never expected to fire at alien warships. But when the order came, he didn't hesitate. "Battery 1, target locked," he said. Firing. The railgun hummed with power. Electromagnetic coils accelerated the projectile in a fraction of a second. The tungsten rod shot into space, invisible against the blackness. 3 seconds later, it struck an alien destroyer. The ship didn't explode immediately. The projectile was too fast for that. It punched straight through, entering the front and exiting the back. For a moment, the destroyer seemed intact. Then the damage became visible, atmosphere venting from 100 holes, fires spreading through corridors, secondary explosions as fuel lines ruptured. The ship began to spin, out of control, dying. "Target destroyed," James reported. Battery 1 reloading. Battery 2 ready. He selected his next target, another destroyer. This one was trying to maneuver to present a smaller profile. It didn't matter. James was a trained marksman. His targeting computer was the most advanced humanity had ever built, and his enemy didn't know he was there. Battery 2. Target locked. Firing. Another tungsten rod. Another dead alien ship across Earth's orbit. Similar scenes played out. 32 orbital strike platforms opened fire simultaneously. Each platform had been placed in a carefully calculated position. Together, they created overlapping fields of fire that covered every approach to the planet. The Velanthari had no defense against these weapons. Their point defense systems were designed to stop missiles, slow-moving trajectories, with predictable trajectories. The railgun rounds were too fast and too small. By the time sensors detected them, they had already struck, and the railguns were only part of humanity's arsenal. On the surface of the Pacific Ocean, the submarine USS Montana received its orders. The Montana was one of 12 Ohio-class submarines that carried nuclear missiles. Each submarine had 24 missiles. Each missile had 8 warheads. Each warhead could destroy a city. For decades, these submarines had lurked beneath the waves, waiting for a war that never came. Now that war had arrived. Captain Sarah Blackwood read her orders twice. She had trained for nuclear war. She had accepted that she might one day have to destroy enemy cities, but she had never expected to fire at targets in space. "Weapons officer," she said. "Open outer doors on tubes 1 through 12. I captain outer doors open. Program targets. Enemy vessels in low Earth orbit. Distribute warheads for maximum coverage." Targets programmed. Captain Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment. The moment she had dreaded and prepared for. The moment when she would launch weapons of mass destruction. Fire. 12 missiles erupted from the ocean. They climbed on pillars of flame, accelerating toward space. As they rose, their fairings separated. Each missile released 8 independent warheads, 96 nuclear bombs, each on its own trajectory, each seeking its own target. The Velanthari saw the missiles coming. Their sensors tracked the launches. Their point defense systems activated. Plasma bolts reached down, destroying warheads by the dozen. But 96 warheads were just the beginning, across the planet. More submarines launched. More land-based missiles rose from silos. More aircraft dropped their payloads. Within minutes, thousands of nuclear weapons filled the sky. The Velanthari destroyed hundreds. Their point defense was effective against individual targets. But they could not stop everything. They could not be everywhere at once. And the humans kept launching. The first nuclear detonation occurred 10 kilometers from the cruiser light of civilization. The warhead was a modern thermonuclear device, 50 megatons of explosive power. In space, there was no shockwave, no mushroom cloud, just a flash of light brighter than the sun, and a wave of radiation that killed everything it touched. The light of civilization's crew died instantly. The ship's hull survived, but everything inside was cooked. Computer systems melted. Fuel lines burst. Ammunition detonated. The cruiser became a floating tomb. More detonations followed. Nuclear fireballs bloomed across Earth's orbit. The Velanthari fleet, which had arrived so confident and powerful, began to die. Grand Admiral Keth Voron watched the destruction from his flagship. He had never seen anything like it. The humans were using weapons of mass destruction against their own sky. They were filling near-Earth space with radiation and debris. They were making their orbital environment uninhabitable, and they didn't care. This was what shocked him most. The humans were willing to damage their own territory to defeat their enemy. They were willing to accept losses, to sacrifice their own resources, to pay any price for victory. The Velanthari had not faced this kind of enemy in thousands of years. Most species surrendered when threatened. Those that fought did so defensively, trying to protect what they had. They did not attack with suicidal aggression, but the humans attacked constantly, relentlessly, from every direction at once. Grand Admiral shouted a sensor officer. New contacts coming from the planet's surface. Kev Voron looked at the display. More objects rising from Earth. These were smaller than missiles, faster, more maneuverable, and there were hundreds of them. "What are those?" he demanded. "Unknown. They appear to be autonomous vehicles. No life signs aboard." Drones. The humans had sent drones. The Valentari had drones too, of course. Automated fighters that could operate without pilots, but they used them sparingly. Drones were expensive. Drones required sophisticated AI. Drones were a luxury. The humans did not treat drones as a luxury. They treated them as expendable weapons. The first wave of drones reached the fleet. They were small, no larger than human ground vehicles. They carried no weapons. Their purpose was simpler and more terrifying. They exploded. Each drone was packed with high explosives. Not nuclear, just chemical compounds that humanity had been refining for centuries. TNT, RDX, C4, simple explosives that could be manufactured in any factory. The drones targeted weak points, sensor arrays, communication dishes, point defense batteries. They flew directly at these targets and detonated on impact. One drone could not destroy a Valentari warship, but a dozen could blind it, 100 could it, and the humans had sent thousands. The battle became chaos. Valentari ships fired desperately at incoming drones, missiles, and railgun projectiles. Some hits found their marks. Most missed. The humans were using quantity to overcome quality. They couldn't match Valentari technology, so they overwhelmed it with numbers. Commander Yathara grabbed Keth Varane's arm. "We must retreat now before we lose everything." Keith Varane wanted to argue. Retreat was shameful. The Imperium did not retreat. But he was not fighting the Imperium's usual enemies. He was fighting something new. Something that did not play by civilized rules. "All ships," he ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump. Calculate coordinates for the nearest Imperium staging point." The surviving ships began the jump calculations. FTL travel was not instant. The drives needed time to charge. The computers needed time to plot safe routes. In normal circumstances, this process took 15 minutes. The humans did not give them 15 minutes. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen had been watching the battle with growing amazement. She had detected the alien fleet. She had sounded the alarm, and now she was watching humanity win. But she noticed something on her screens. Energy readings from the alien ships were changing. They were building power in ways she didn't recognize. "They're trying to run," she reported. "Their engines are powering up for something big, maybe faster than light travel." Her warning reached the military commanders within seconds. General Stone received the report and made an immediate decision. "Don't let them escape. We need their technology. We need their information. Hit them with everything we have left." The order went out. Every remaining weapon in humanity's arsenal focused on the fleeing ships. This was no longer a battle of defense. This was a hunt. The cyber warfare units struck first. For decades, human nations had been developing digital weapons, viruses designed to infiltrate enemy computer systems, Trojans that could hide in seemingly innocent data, worms that could spread from machine to machine, corrupting everything they touched. These weapons had never been used against aliens before. No one knew if they would work. The Valthari used different operating systems, different coding languages, different hardware architectures. But computers are computers. Logic is logic. And human hackers were the best in their solar system. The attack began with a simple transmission, a burst of data that seemed like random noise. The Valari communication systems processed it automatically, the same way they processed all incoming signals. Hidden in that noise was code, alien code, reverse-engineered from intercepted Valentari signals over the past 3 days. Human programmers had studied the alien communications. They had identified patterns. They had created viruses that could exploit weaknesses in the Valentari systems. The viruses spread on the destroyer Wrath of the Imperium. The navigation computer suddenly reset. When it came back online, it had new instructions. Instructions that no villain had given it. The ship turned hard to starboard. It accelerated directly into the path of 3 other vessels. "Navigation malfunction," screamed the pilot. "I can't control the ship." The captain tried to override. His commands were ignored. The ship continued on its collision course. The other vessels tried to evade, but they were also experiencing malfunctions. Their own computers were fighting their crews. The Wrath of the Imperium struck the frigate Servant of Order at full speed. Both ships crumpled like foil. Fuel and atmosphere exploded into space. 5,000 Valentari died in an instant. Similar scenes played out across the fleet. Ships fired on each other. Ships changed course randomly. Ships shut down their own shields and weapons. The viruses spread faster than anyone could contain them. Grand Admiral Keverin watched his fleet tear itself apart. His own flagship was infected. He could see the virus spreading through system after system. His crew fought it desperately, shutting down computers, isolating networks, trying to regain control. "We're losing navigation," reported an officer. "Engines are not responding to commands. Weapons systems are offline," reported another. "I can't even activate the self-destruct." Self-destruct? That was supposed to be the final option. If a ship could not be saved, its crew could destroy it, rather than let it fall into enemy hands. But even that was denied to them now. Keith Verrain felt a strange sensation. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. Real fear. The kind he had not felt in centuries. He had sent fleets to conquer primitives. He had expected easy victory. He had received annihilation. The battle lasted less than 2 hours. In that time, humanity destroyed 169 Valentari warships. They crippled 20 more. They captured 11, including the Grand Admiral's flagship. Only 31 ships escaped. They jumped to FTL the moment their drives were ready, fleeing into the darkness between stars. They carried with them a warning that would spread across the galaxy. Do not attack Earth. The humans are not primitives. The humans are not prey. The humans are predators, and they will destroy anyone who threatens them. On Earth, the sun rose on a battlefield. Debris from the alien fleet rained down through the atmosphere. Most pieces burned up harmlessly. Some reached the surface, falling into oceans or empty deserts. The nuclear detonations had created a temporary radiation belt around the planet. Scientists estimated it would dissipate within weeks. Cleanup crews were already planning to retrieve the larger pieces of wreckage. But these problems were minor compared to what humanity had gained. 11 alien warships, intact or nearly intact, filled with technology that humanity could study and reverse engineer. Faster than light engines, plasma weapons, shield generators, the secrets of interstellar travel, and prisoners. Thousands of Valentari crew members captured alive. They could be questioned. They could provide information. They could explain how the galaxy worked and what other threats humanity might face. General Stone stood in a hastily constructed prison camp, looking at the captured aliens. They were strange creatures, tall and gray, with 4 eyes and no hair. They moved differently than humans. They spoke in clicks and whistles that translators struggled to interpret. But they were prisoners now. They had come to enslave humanity. Instead, they had become humanity's first source of intelligence about the wider universe. "We won," Stone said quietly. He was speaking to no one in particular, just saying the words aloud, making them real. "We actually won." His aide nodded. "Yes, sir. We won. But this isn't over, is it?" "No." Stone looked up at the sky, still scarred by the battle. They came from somewhere. They belonged to something bigger, an empire, the Valentari Imperium. And when their people learn what happened here, they're going to want revenge. So what do we do? Stone smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just tasted blood. We prepare. We learn everything we can from these prisoners and their ships. We build our own fleet. And when the Imperium comes back, we meet them in space, on our terms, with weapons they can't imagine. His aide looked uncertain. "Sir, they've been traveling between stars for thousands of years. We've barely reached our own moon. How can we possibly catch up? Because we have to. Because there is no other option." Stone turned to face his aide directly. "The universe just learned that humanity exists. And now everyone out there knows 2 things about us. First, we can fight. Second, we will fight. That makes us dangerous. That makes us a threat. And threats don't get left alone. They get dealt with." He pointed at the captured alien ships, now surrounded by scientists and engineers, eager to unlock their secrets. "We have months, maybe years, but eventually the Imperium will come back. And when they do, we need to be ready. Not just to defend Earth, to take the fight to them, to show the entire galaxy that humanity is not a species to be conquered." The aide swallowed hard. "You're talking about war." Real war against an interstellar empire. I'm talking about survival. Our survival. And if war is what it takes, then yes, war above them. The sky was clearing. The radiation was fading. The debris was falling. Earth was healing from the battle. But the battle was only the beginning. Humanity had faced its first alien invasion and won. Now it faced something even harder, preparing for the next one and making sure that when it came, humanity would not just survive, humanity would conquer. The work began immediately. Scientists swarmed over the captured ships. Engineers studied the alien engines. Linguists worked with prisoners to understand their language. Every piece of information was cataloged, analyzed, and shared. And in factories across the planet, production lines shifted. Weapons that had been built to fight human wars were redesigned for alien targets. Shipyards that had built aircraft carriers and submarines began planning something new, something that could travel between stars. Humanity had been given a gift, a terrible, dangerous gift, the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. And with that knowledge came a choice. Hide and hope the aliens never came back, or stand up, step forward and claim humanity's place among the stars. The choice was obvious. It had always been obvious. Humanity chose to fight. The assault shuttle shook violently as it approached the crippled alien flagship. Inside, 24 soldiers checked their weapons and equipment for the 10th time. They were the best humanity had. Special forces from a dozen nations. Men and women who had trained their entire lives for impossible missions. This was the most impossible mission of all. Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez gripped her rifle and tried to slow her breathing. She had served in 3 wars. She had fought in jungles, deserts, and mountains. She had killed enemies with bullets, knives, and her bare hands. But she had never boarded an alien spacecraft before. 30 seconds to dock, announced the pilot. The airlock appears intact. We should have a clean seal. Elena looked at her team. Their faces were hidden behind armored helmets. Their bodies were covered in experimental exoskeletal suits that multiplied their strength and protected them from hostile environments. They looked like robots, not humans. Good. They needed every advantage they could get. Remember your training? She said over the squad channel. These aliens are bigger than us, faster than us, but they've never fought a real war. They don't know what humans can do. Show them. Ha! Came the response from 23 voices. The shuttle connected with the alien ship's airlock. There was a clang of metal on metal, a hiss of pressure equalizing. Then the inner door opened and the squad moved into the Eternal Dominion. The corridor was dark. Emergency lighting cast a red glow over everything. The ship's main power was offline, killed by human cyber attacks. The aliens were operating on backup systems only. Elena moved forward, her rifle raised. The exoskeleton whirred softly with each step. Her helmet display showed thermal imaging, life forms highlighted in orange against the cool blue of the ship's walls. Contact ahead, she reported. 4 hostiles. 30 meters. The Velanthari soldiers appeared around a corner. They were big, as expected, nearly 3 meters tall. They wore armor and carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. They had been waiting for the humans. They had set up a defensive position. They thought they were ready. They were wrong. Elena fired first. Her rifle was loaded with armor-piercing rounds, designed to penetrate tank armor. They punched through the alien armor like paper. The first Velthari fell. The second raised his weapon, but 2 more soldiers had already fired. The alien collapsed with smoking holes in his chest. The third tried to run. A soldier named Chen tackled him, using the exoskeleton's enhanced strength to slam the creature into the wall. The impact cracked the alien's helmet. The fourth surrendered. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Or at least Elena assumed that's what the gesture meant. The 4-eyed face showed something that might have been fear. Secure him, Elena ordered. We need prisoners who can talk. The soldier named Jackson bound the alien with reinforced cable. They didn't have handcuffs that fit alien wrists. They had improvised. The squad moved on. More corridors. More aliens. Some fought, some fled, some surrendered. Elena's team killed when they had to, and captured when they could. The humans were not here for revenge. They were here for intelligence. Every prisoner could provide information. Every captured computer could reveal secrets. Every piece of technology could be studied and copied. This was not a battle. This was a harvest. Deep in the ship, Grand Admiral Keth Varain waited in his quarters. He had sealed the door and disabled the controls. His personal guards had died defending the corridor outside. He could hear the sounds of fighting getting closer. He held a plasma pistol in his hand. The weapon was ceremonial, given to him when he reached the rank of admiral. He had never fired it in combat. He had never needed to. Now he considered using it on himself. The Imperium had rules about capture. Admirals were not supposed to surrender. They were supposed to die with honor, protecting the secrets of the fleet. If Keth Varain was captured alive, he would be disgraced. His family would lose their status. His name would be erased from history, but he was afraid. He had never admitted this before, not even to himself. But watching his fleet die, watching his ship fall, he had discovered something terrible about himself. He was a coward. He had commanded from the rear because it was safe. He had conquered primitives because they couldn't fight back. He had built a career on easy victories against helpless enemies. Now he faced real soldiers, real warriors, and he couldn't pull the trigger. The door exploded inward. Smoke filled the room. Keth Varain raised his pistol, trying to aim at something. Anything. A hand grabbed his wrist. Another hand grabbed his weapon. A third hand slammed him against the wall. He was stronger than any human, but they were wearing machines that made them stronger still. Grand Admiral Keth Varain, said a voice. Female. Calm, speaking through a translation device. You are under arrest. Keth Varain looked at his captor. She had removed her helmet. Her face was brown-skinned and scarred. Her eyes were dark and cold. She showed no fear, no hesitation. Who are you? He asked. Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez, United Nations Special Forces. And you're my prisoner? She gestured to her team. They secured Keth Varain with the same cables they had used on other prisoners. They searched his quarters, taking everything that might be useful. Data devices, personal records, maps and charts. And then they escorted him through his own ship, past the bodies of his soldiers, past the burning wreckage of his bridge, past the hundreds of human soldiers who now occupied every deck. His flagship had fallen. His fleet was destroyed. His invasion had become a disaster, and it had taken the humans less than 3 hours. On Earth, the world was trying to understand what had happened. The battle had been broadcast on every channel. People had watched the alien ships appear in the sky. They had watched the missiles launch. They had watched the explosions in orbit. They had watched humanity win. The reactions varied. Some people celebrated in the streets. They waved flags and shouted cheers. Humanity had faced an alien invasion and triumphed. It was the greatest victory in history. Others were afraid. The aliens had come once. They would come again. And next time, there would be more of them. The Imperium would want revenge for its defeated fleet. Still others were practical. Scientists and engineers looked at the captured ships and saw opportunities faster than light travel. Energy shields, plasma weapons, technology that humanity could study and copy and improve. The war was not over, but humanity had won the first battle, and that was enough for now. Secretary General Yuki Tanaka addressed the United Nations the next morning. She stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from every nation on Earth. They were exhausted. They were scared. They were proud. Yesterday, we faced the greatest challenge in human history, she began. An alien fleet came to our world. They demanded our surrender. They threatened our extinction. And we said no. She paused, letting the words sink in. We said no, and we fought. We used every weapon we had. We attacked with missiles and lasers and railguns. We attacked with computer viruses and boarding parties. We attacked without mercy, without hesitation, and without fear. Her voice grew stronger. And we won. We destroyed their fleet. We captured their admiral. We claimed their technology. Yesterday, humanity proved something to the universe. We proved that we are not victims. We are not prey. We are warriors. The room erupted in applause. Representatives from nations that had been enemies for decades stood side by side, clapping and cheering. For this moment, at least humanity was united. Tanaka waited for the noise to fade before continuing. But our victory is only the beginning. The aliens we defeated belong to a vast empire. The Velthari Imperium spans hundreds of worlds. When they learn what happened here, they will return, and they will bring more ships. The applause died. Reality set in. We have time, Tanaka said. Months, perhaps years, before the Imperium can respond. We must use that time wisely. We must study the captured technology. We must build our own starships. We must prepare to defend not just Earth, but our entire solar system. She looked directly at the cameras, speaking now to every person on the planet. The age of isolation is over. Humanity has entered the galaxy, and we will not enter as slaves. We will enter as equals, as warriors, as conquerors. If necessary, we will take our place among the stars, and we will bow to no one. The speech was broadcast worldwide. Billions of people heard it, and billions of people felt something change inside them. Fear was still there. The universe was vast and dangerous. But there was something else now. Hope, determination, pride. Humanity had faced the darkness between the stars, and humanity had won. In the weeks that followed, the real work began. The captured alien ships were moved to secure facilities on the moon. Human scientists and engineers swarmed over them, documenting everything. Dr. Maya Patel was one of these scientists. She specialized in propulsion systems. For 20 years, she had studied theoretical designs for interstellar engines. They had always been fantasy. Now, she was looking at the real thing. The drive system is incredible, she reported to her team. It creates a bubble of warped space around the ship. Inside the bubble, the ship can move faster than light without actually accelerating. It's like the universe is moving around the ship instead of the ship moving through the universe. Can we copy it? Asked her assistant. Maya studied the engine carefully. It was advanced, far beyond human technology. But the principles were understandable. The materials were exotic, but not impossible to synthesize. The energy requirements were massive, but not infinite. Yes, she said finally. We can copy it. It won't be easy. It won't be fast, but we can do it. Similar discoveries were happening across every field. Engineers studied the alien shields and learned how to generate protective energy fields. Weapons experts analyzed the plasma cannons and figured out how to build their own. Computer scientists dissected the alien software and discovered vulnerabilities that human viruses could exploit. The prisoners provided even more valuable information. Grand Admiral Kethforin was resistant at first. He refused to answer questions. He demanded to be treated according to Imperium protocols. The humans ignored his demands. They were not cruel. They provided food and water and medical care. But they also made clear that cooperation was expected. You have two choices, explained the interrogator. A former intelligence officer named David Park. You can help us understand your civilization, and we will treat you well. Or you can refuse, and we will learn everything anyway from your computers and your crew. The only difference is how comfortable your stay will be. Keverin considered his options. He was a practical creature. Despite his arrogance, he could see that resistance was pointless. The humans had already captured his ship. They were already studying his technology. What more could his silence accomplish? And if he cooperated, perhaps he could survive. Perhaps he could even find a way to escape. What do you want to know? He asked. David smiled. Everything. Start with the Imperium. How many worlds? How many ships? Who leads it? Keith Voron talked. He talked for days. He described the structure of the Valentari Imperium, the Emperor and his council, the great houses and their fleets, the conquered species and their slave populations. He told them about the military, 4,000 capital ships, hundreds of thousands of smaller vessels, armies that numbered in the billions. He told them about the culture. The Valentari had ruled for 12,000 years. They believed they were superior to all other species. They believed conquest was their destiny, their right. And he told them about the galaxy, hundreds of intelligent species, most conquered or enslaved. A few independent civilizations that the Imperium tolerated, and vast unexplored regions where anything might be found. The humans recorded everything. They cross-referenced his information with data from the captured computers. They built a picture of the universe they had entered. It was a dangerous universe, a hostile universe. But it was also an opportunity. General Stone led the military planning effort. He gathered commanders from every major nation and created a unified defense strategy. "We have 18 months, he announced at the first meeting. "That's our best estimate for when the Imperium will learn about the battle and organize a response. 18 months to build a fleet that can defend our solar system. Is that even possible?" asked a Chinese general. "We've never built a starship. We don't have the infrastructure, the materials, the expertise. We didn't have those things 3 weeks ago," Stone replied. "Now we do. We have 11 alien ships to study. We have thousands of prisoners to interrogate. We have every scientist on Earth working around the clock." He displayed a holographic projection, a ship design that looked like nothing humanity had ever built before. "This is the first human starship. We're calling it the Defiance. It will carry human weapons on an alien hull, railguns, missile launchers, laser batteries, nuclear torpedoes. It will have shields and faster-than-light engines copied from Valentari technology." The general studied the design. It was impressive, ambitious, perhaps impossible. "How many can we build in 18 months?" asked the Russian general. "1, maybe 2 if we rush." Stone's expression was grim. "The Imperium has 4,000 capital ships. We will have 2. The math is not in our favor. Then how can we possibly win?" Stone smiled. It was the smile of a wolf. "We don't fight their war. We fight ours. We use tactics they don't expect. We attack where they're weak. We make every ship cost them dearly. We make them afraid to face us." He pulled up another display. This one showed the galaxy, with Valentari territory marked in red. The Imperium is vast, but it's also stretched thin. They have enemies on many borders. They have rebellions to suppress. They have resources spread across hundreds of worlds. If we can hurt them badly enough, they'll have to make a choice. Keep fighting us, or deal with their other problems. "You want to make the cost of conquest too high," said the British general, understanding. "Exactly. We can't beat them in a straight fight, but we can bleed them. We can make them pay for every system, every planet, every moon, and eventually they'll decide we're not worth the trouble." It was a desperate strategy, a strategy born of weakness, but it was the only strategy humanity had. The work continued. Factories converted to military production. Shipyards expanded. Training programs began for the first generation of human starship crews, and 6 months after the battle, the UNS Defiance rose from Earth's orbital shipyard. It was ungainly and incomplete. Its paint was still drying. Its systems were still being tested. But it was humanity's first starship, the first vessel built by humans that could travel between the stars. Elena Vasquez watched the launch from the observation deck of the shipyard. She had been promoted to major after the boarding action. She had been assigned to the Defiance as the commander of its ground forces. Beside her stood David Park, now an intelligence officer attached to the ship, and Captain James Okonkwo, the railgun operator, who had destroyed so many enemy ships, now a pilot trainer. "It's beautiful," David said. "It's a weapon," Elena corrected. "A weapon pointed at anyone who threatens us. Both things can be true." Elena nodded slowly. She looked at the ship, at the thousands of workers still swarming over its hull. She thought about what was coming. The Imperium, their revenge, the war that would decide humanity's future. "We're not ready," she said. "We have 1 ship. They have thousands. We have 18 months, James offered. "We'll build more. Will it be enough?" No one answered. No one knew. But they kept working anyway, because there was no other choice. Because humanity had entered the galaxy, and there was no going back. Because somewhere out there, an ancient empire was learning about the species that had destroyed its fleet. And when the Imperium came for revenge, humanity would be waiting. The Defiance completed its maiden voyage. 3 months later, it jumped to faster than light, traveled to the edge of the solar system, and returned safely. Human beings had traveled faster than light. 2 more ships began construction, then 4, then 8. Resources flowed from every nation on Earth. No expense was spared. This was no longer about politics or borders. This was about survival. The clock was ticking. 18 months, then 12, then 6. And in the darkness between stars, messages traveled at the speed of light. Messages carrying news of the disaster. Messages that would eventually reach the heart of the Velthari Imperium. Messages that would bring war. The throne room of the Valentari Imperium had stood for 8,000 years. It was carved from a single mountain of black stone. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed beneath it. Its walls were decorated with the treasures of 1,000 conquered worlds. Emperor Keth Valoran the Eternal sat upon the crystal throne, listening to news that made his blood run cold. "The entire fleet?" he asked. His voice was quiet, dangerous. The messenger trembled before him. Messengers who brought bad news often died. This news was the worst in centuries. "Yes, Divine Emperor. The 7th Subjugation Fleet was destroyed. 169 ships lost. 20 more captured. Only 31 escaped." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Around him, the court waited. Ministers and generals and nobles, all watching, all afraid. And Grand Admiral Keth Varain captured. "Divine Emperor. He is a prisoner of the humans." A murmur ran through the court. Kev Voran captured. An admiral of the Imperium taken alive. It was unprecedented. It was shameful. It was terrifying. The Emperor raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. "Show me," he commanded. The messenger activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the throne. Ships exploding. Nuclear fire blossoming in space. The broken hulk of the Eternal Dominion drifting helplessly. And then the humans. Small creatures in armored suits storming through Valenthari corridors. Fighting with a ferocity that the court had never seen. Winning, the footage ended with Grand Admiral Kevoran in chains, being led away by his captors. The once proud admiral looked broken. Defeated, Emperor Keth Valoran studied the images carefully. He had ruled for 3 centuries. He had survived assassination attempts, and rebellions, and border wars. He had never seen anything like this. "How?" he asked. "How did primitives defeat a full subjugation fleet?" A general stepped forward. "Lord Yith Koran, commander of the Imperial Guard, the Emperor's most trusted military advisor, Divine Emperor. The humans are not as primitive as our initial assessments indicated. They possess weapons of significant destructive power, nuclear devices, kinetic accelerators, autonomous combat systems. They also demonstrated capabilities in electronic warfare that we have never encountered before." Electronic warfare. Yes, Divine Emperor. They infected our computer systems with malicious code. They turned our ships against each other. They disabled our defenses from the inside. The Emperor considered this. The Valentari had always relied on their superior technology. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their computers more advanced. But the humans had found a different way to fight. What do we know about their capabilities now? Limited information. Divine Emperor. Our surviving ships observed the battle from a distance before fleeing. The humans appear to be studying our captured vessels. They may already be attempting to copy our technology. This was the worst possibility. The Valenthari had maintained their dominance for millennia because no other species could match their technology. If the humans learned to build faster than light engines, if they copied the plasma weapons and energy shields, then the balance of power would shift. "We must destroy them," declared Lord Vithara, Minister of Conquest. "Before they become a threat, send the Grand Fleet. Burn their world to glass. Leave no survivors." Many in the court nodded. This was the traditional Valentari response to rebellion. Overwhelming force, total destruction, a lesson to any other species that might think of resisting. But Emperor Keth Valoran was silent. He was studying the holographic images again, watching the human soldiers fight, watching their precision and coordination, watching their complete lack of fear. "The Grand Fleet," he said slowly. 400 ships, our largest military force. "Yes, Divine Emperor. Enough to destroy any enemy. Enough to destroy 169 ships in less than 2 hours." The court fell silent. The math was disturbing. The humans had defeated the 7th Subjugation Fleet with only their planetary defenses. What would they do if they had time to prepare? If they built their own fleet? If they carried the war to Valentari space? "The humans are different," the Emperor continued. "They are not like the other species we have conquered. They fight with a desperation we have never seen. They accept losses that would break any other civilization. They attack without hesitation, without mercy." He rose from his throne and walked to the holographic display. His court watched in silence. Our ancestors built this imperium through conquest. We defeated species greater than ourselves because we were willing to sacrifice more. We were hungry. We were desperate. We were survivors. He touched the image of a human soldier. These creatures are what we used to be before we became soft, before we forgot what it means to fight for survival. They are predators, and we have spent too long as kings. Lord Vithara stepped forward. Divine Emperor, surely you are not suggesting we fear these primitives. I am suggesting we respect them. The Emperor's voice was hard. Respect does not mean fear. It means recognition. Recognition that we face a dangerous enemy. Recognition that old tactics will not work. Recognition that this war, if we choose to fight it, will not be easy. He turned to face his court. I have made my decision. We will not send the Grand Fleet. We will not invade their world. Not yet. Gasps echoed through the throne room. The Emperor was refusing to punish the humans. This was unprecedented. Divine Emperor Lord Ythoran said carefully, "The other species are watching. If we do not respond to this humiliation, they will think us weak. There may be rebellions, uprisings. The order we have maintained for millennia could collapse. I am aware of the risks." The Emperor returned to his throne and sat down heavily. But I am also aware of a greater risk. The risk of underestimating these humans again. We sent 200 ships, and they destroyed them in hours. How many ships must we send to guarantee victory? 400, 1,000, 2,000? He shook his head. Every ship we send to fight humans is a ship we cannot use elsewhere. Every soldier who dies on Earth is a soldier who cannot suppress rebellions or guard our borders. The humans want us to attack. They want us to waste our resources. They want us to bleed ourselves dry against their defenses. Then what do we do, Divine Emperor? The Emperor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. We send ambassadors. We offer tribute, and we pray they accept. The court erupted. Ambassadors, tribute to primitives, to the species that had killed their soldiers and captured their admiral. This was madness. This was cowardice. This was the end of everything the Velthari had built. But the Emperor raised his hand, and silence fell again. I do not offer this tribute out of weakness, he said. I offer it out of wisdom. The humans have proven themselves. They have earned a place at the table of civilized species. We will treat them as equals, at least for now. He looked at Lord Ythkaran. And while we negotiate, we will prepare. We will study everything we know about human warfare. We will develop countermeasures for their weapons. We will train our soldiers to fight like they fight. And when we are ready, truly ready, we will decide whether to honor our treaty or break it. The court slowly understood. This was not surrender. This was strategy. The Emperor was buying time, just as the humans were buying time. Both sides knew that war was coming. Both sides were preparing. The question was, which side would be ready first? On Earth, news of the Velthari response arrived. 3 months later, a diplomatic vessel appeared at the edge of the solar system, broadcasting peace signals. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, just ambassadors and translators and gifts. Secretary General Yuki Tanaka received them in the rebuilt United Nations headquarters in New York. She listened to their offers with a calm expression that revealed nothing. The Imperium recognizes humanity as a sovereign species. The lead ambassador declared. He was tall and thin, his gray skin marked with symbols of his rank. We offer a treaty of peace, trade agreements, cultural exchange, an end to all hostilities. Tanaka nodded slowly. And what does the Imperium want in return? Only friendship, only cooperation. The Imperium wishes to welcome humanity into the community of civilized species, the same community that your fleet tried to enslave 6 months ago. The ambassador shifted uncomfortably. That was a misunderstanding. The commander acted without proper authority. He has been captured by your forces and will face justice. He will face our justice, Tanaka corrected. He invaded our world. He threatened our people. He is our prisoner, and he will answer to our laws. The ambassador hesitated. This was not how conquered species were supposed to talk. But the humans had not been conquered. They had won. Of course. he said finally. "We recognize your authority in this matter." The negotiations continued for weeks. Tanaka gave nothing away. She listened to every offer, asked careful questions, and made no commitments. She knew what the Imperium was doing. They were buying time. They were studying humanity. They were preparing for round 2. But humanity was doing the same thing. The treaty was signed eventually, a document of beautiful words and empty promises. Peace between Earth and the Valentari Imperium. Trade rights. Diplomatic recognition. A seat for humanity in something called the Galactic Concord, an assembly of civilized species. Neither side believed it would last. The UNS Defiance was completed 2 months after the treaty signing. It was the first human starship, the first vessel built by humans that could travel between stars. Its crew of 300 volunteers had trained for a year. They were ready. Captain Sarah Blackwood stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. She had commanded submarines before. Now she commanded a starship. The change still felt unreal. All systems operational. Captain reported her first officer, Commander Chen. FTL drive is charged and ready. Crew is at stations. Blackwood nodded. Their mission was simple but historic. Take Grand Admiral Keth back to the border of Imperium space. Deliver him to his own people as a message. Humanity was coming. Set course for the designated coordinates, she ordered. Prepare for FTL jump. The Defiance hummed with power. The experimental drive system copied from Valentari technology, but improved with human modifications. Activated space twisted around the ship, and then they were moving faster than light, crossing distances that would have taken centuries at normal speeds. In the brig, Keth Voron felt the jump. He had traveled faster than light countless times before. But this was different. This was a human ship. A ship that his own people had thought impossible just 2 years ago. They had learned so quickly. They had adapted so fast. The prisoners had been questioned for months. The captured ships had been studied down to the last component. And the humans had taken that knowledge and built something new, something dangerous. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of jumping and resting, and jumping again. The Defiance covered more distance than any human had ever traveled before. When they arrived at the border, a Valari welcoming party was waiting. 3 cruisers and a diplomatic vessel. They had been notified in advance. Captain Blackwood opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Sarah Blackwood of the UNS Defiance. We are here to return your admiral." The Valenthuri commander appeared on screen. He was trying to look dignified, but Blackwood could see the fear in his eyes. A human starship at the border, armed with weapons that had destroyed a fleet. We are pleased to receive him," the commander said. "We thank humanity for this gesture of goodwill." "It's not goodwill." Blackwood's voice was flat. "It's a message." A shuttle launched from the Defiance, carrying Kethor to his own people. The former Grand Admiral was no longer in chains. But he was still broken. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. He would spend the rest of his life as a reminder of Valentari failure. As the shuttle docked with the diplomatic vessel, Blackwood broadcast one final transmission. "The humans of Earth have a saying, 'We come in peace. Shoot first and we'll shoot last.'" She paused, letting the words sink in. "We don't want war with the Imperium. We want trade. We want cooperation. We want to explore the galaxy alongside other species. But if anyone threatens our home, our people or our friends, we will respond with everything we have." The Valthari commander nodded nervously. "And tell your emperor something else." Blackwood leaned forward. "We're building more ships. Many more. When we're done, we won't just defend Earth. We'll be able to reach any world in your Imperium. Think about that. Think about what we did to your fleet. And think very carefully before you break this treaty." She ended the transmission and turned to her crew. "Take us home." The Defiance jumped back to Earth. Behind it, the Valthari fleet remained frozen in place, afraid to move, afraid to react. The message had been received. News of humanity's entrance into the galactic community spread quickly. Species across hundreds of worlds heard the story. A primitive species had defeated a Valari subjugation fleet. A species that had only just learned to leave its own planet, had built starships, and traveled to the stars. Reactions varied. The Valthari Imperium maintained its public stance of friendship and cooperation. In private, Their military worked frantically on new weapons and tactics. They studied every piece of intelligence they could gather about human warfare. They prepared for the war they knew was coming. Other species watched with different emotions. The Lorathi, a race enslaved by the Velthari for 2,000 years, heard the news with desperate hope. If the humans could defeat the Imperium, perhaps others could too. Secret messages were sent. Rebellions were planned. The Kathmari Collective, an independent civilization that had resisted Valentari expansion for centuries, sent their own ambassadors to Earth. They proposed an alliance, a partnership between species that valued freedom. The Galactic Concord, the assembly of civilized species, debated what to do about the newcomers. Some wanted to welcome humanity. Others wanted to contain them. None could agree, and humanity continued to build. 1 year after the battle, Earth's fleet had grown to 12 starships. Each was more advanced than the last. Human engineers had not simply copied Valentari technology, they had improved it. Human weapons were more powerful. Human ships were faster. Human computers were impossible to hack. Secretary General Tanaka addressed the United Nations on the anniversary of first contact. 1 year ago, we were alone. We thought we were the only intelligent species in the universe. We were wrong. She looked out at the assembled representatives, leaders from every nation, heroes of the battle, scientists and engineers who had built the new fleet. 1 year ago, an alien fleet tried to enslave us. They thought we were primitives. They thought we would surrender. They were wrong. Her voice grew stronger. Today we have 12 starships. We have colonies on the Moon and Mars and the moons of Jupiter. We have ambassadors in the Galactic Concord. We have allies who share our values and our dreams. She paused, letting the moment stretch. But we also have enemies. The Valentari Imperium has not forgotten. They are preparing for another war. Other species see us as a threat to their power. The galaxy is not a peaceful place. Her expression hardened. We will not seek war, but we will not run from it. We will explore the stars. We will make friends where we can, and we will crush anyone who threatens our people. The applause was thunderous. Representatives who had once been enemies stood together, united by a shared purpose. Humanity had found its place in the universe, not as victims, not as slaves, not as primitives waiting to be conquered, as predators, as warriors, as a species that would bow to no one. In the throne room of the Valentari Imperium, Emperor Keth Valoran watched the broadcast. His advisors stood around him, waiting for his reaction. He studied the human leader, so small, so fragile-looking, but her eyes held no fear. Her voice carried absolute conviction. They are building an empire, Lord Yithkorin observed. Within a generation they may rival our own. Yes, the Emperor agreed. They are. What do we do? Divine Emperor. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. He thought about history, about his ancestors who had built the Imperium from nothing, about the countless species they had conquered. And he thought about the future, about a universe where humanity was not a minor annoyance but a major power, about wars that would last centuries and claim billions of lives. We wait, he said finally. We watch, we prepare, and we hope that when the final conflict comes, we are ready for it. He looked at the image of Earth on his display, a small blue world, a world that had changed everything, because if we are not ready, if we underestimate them again, they will destroy us, not conquer us, not enslave us, destroy us. Every ship, every world, every Valentari who ever lived. His advisors were silent. They had never heard their emperor speak with such certainty, such fear. The humans do not fight for power, or territory, or glory. They fight for survival. They fight with the desperation of a species that knows it can lose, and that makes them more dangerous than any enemy we have ever faced. He turned away from the display. The age of easy conquest is over. The Imperium must adapt or die, and the universe will never be the same. In the darkness between stars, humanity's fleet continued to grow. Ships patrolled the borders of the solar system. Colonies expanded on a dozen worlds. Scientists developed new weapons, new defenses, new technologies. The humans had entered the galaxy. They had announced themselves with fire and blood, and they had made a promise to every species watching. We are here. We are strong, and we will never be slaves. The galaxy held its breath. The future was uncertain. War was coming someday. But for now, humanity prepared. They trained and built and grew stronger with each passing day. And in the heart of the Valentari Imperium, an ancient emperor looked at the stars and wondered if his civilization would survive the coming storm. The humans had awakened, and the universe would never forget.